Welcome to URL Unzip, Reboot, and Leave, a podcast about the psychology that moves us. Through real conversations with thinkers, doers, and seekers, we explore how we adapt, evolve, and find meaning. So let's unzip, reboot, and leave. Today, our guest is a neuroscientist and a public health researcher. She holds a PhD in neurobiology and neurosciences from University of Melbourne. She translates science into practical strategies for better brain health, chronic disease prevention, and mental well-being. Today, we will be talking about her work in lifestyle medicine, especially how 8 key behaviors or pillars can shape our long-term health. Please welcome Dr. Nupur Nag.
So, from your research of having a better quality well being in our life, you talk about three things: self empowerment, lifestyle modification, and how men and women can help themselves. Okay, so I would like to understand a little more. So, self empowerment, how we can do that.
Self empowerment is self mastery or self resilience, and we don't really know what the predictors are, and that's what my research is actually investigating at the moment. So we're looking at how some of these aspects of diet, of lifestyle modifications, how they can potentially improve self-mastery. And the reason we're interested in that is because research has shown that people with high self-mastery, they have a better coping mechanisms, coping with illness diagnoses, as well as accepting treatment and following their treatment as well. So there's a lot of good qualities of self-mastery, and what we're seeing is that meditation leads to higher self-mastery, but there's other predictors which I hope I'll be able to tell you about in our next interview.
Sweet, Darwin. So, how men and women can help themselves? Can you shed some light on that?
I guess to help themselves, these are all preventative measures, and it goes back to those 8 pillars, and they also reduce the risk of many different chronic illnesses. It's not just about mental well-being, but it reduces your risk of heart disease, of diabetes, and just overall other cancer risk and many other things. So I always go back to those 8 pillars, and the research shows it's not if you do one, you have to do a combination of all of them. And you certainly don't have to do all 8, because that can be quite overwhelming for a lot of them. So find which ones you like and try and do as many as you can.
Can you please explain those 8 pillars?
Yeah, sure. So we all know about diet, how important diet is in our lives and how that shapes mental health. And basically, if you have a high quality diet, so meaning minimizing the amount of processed foods, so trying to have plant-based foods if you can, not those ones that are processed, and if you can minimize the amount of meat. There's a lot of studies showing that meat is related to gastrointestinal disorders. So even if you can do 2 days of vegetarian meals per week, that's a really good step for your body. Exercise, really vital, really critical. World Health Organization recommends 150 minutes per week, and that can be hard, difficult for some people, because if you don't like exercise, but it doesn't mean you need to go to the gym. You can just take a walk, 15-minute walk after dinner or during the day, get off at a tram station earlier than you need to go to work, take the steps. So there's all these incidental exercise that you can incorporate into your day. And we're very sedentary at the moment. Like, a lot of our jobs are always sitting down in front of a computer. So just trying to make sure you incorporate some type of exercise. So most of the studies that I've done, it shows that the key drivers are exercise and diet, and the other ones that make up the 8 are positive social connections, so to have good friend circles, and it doesn't necessarily have to be friends, can be through community, friends, family, but people who uplift you. Then altruism, giving back to people, to community without having expectation of anything in return. And the reason that's important is because it gives us a sense of purpose, and that is really essential in having that sense of belonging, sense of worth, and that's really critical for our mental well-being. And that relates to spirituality as well, having a understanding that most things are beyond our control, and that we don't have control of life and what's happening around us, and that every emotion that we experience passes. So having that trust in spirituality and knowing that there is something higher, there is a purpose for us, knowing that whatever state that we're in currently, it's going to pass, whether that be happiness or sadness, everything is short-lived. And the other eight pillars, one that I'm not very good at is quality sleep. And I think in this day and age, we're always distracted with devices and wanting to rush and do things, and we tend to deprive ourselves with sleep, and not necessarily also deprive it, that affects our sleep because we're always overthinking about things. We have too much information intake, so that impacts sleep quality. And it doesn't matter how many hours necessarily. So as we change over our lifespan, and depending on the person, the hours can differ quite significantly, but the quality of the sleep where you feel rested is more important. Or learning, of course, we've talked about learning before, and that's about making sure that you have this environmental enrichment for your brain. Just like we train our bodies through exercise, we need to keep training our brains. And so if we keep doing things that are habit and routine, that doesn't exercise our brain. So when I'm talking about learning, that could be through doing something that's very new and novel for you, that challenges you. So that could be learning a language, learning an instrument, learning a new skill that is not something that you've done before. An example for me is doing this podcast. So
Thank you.
It's a very new thing. So it doesn't have to be studying books.
Yeah.
It's something that you've never done before, so it mixes it up, just like exercise mixes up your body routine.
What is your research says, like, because I went through depression, and I have a strong belief that mental health comes first. I mean, I have seen few people who are not physically well, but because they're mentally sharp, their quality of life is much, much better than people who are physically maybe fitter, but mentally they are, in that grayish state. So what your research says, I mean, we know like both of them are important, but which is bigger?
Oh, that's a hard question. I think, yeah, they're related. So I don't think there is any research that compares what's the difference. And you are also missing the third one, which is your soul, your internal. Like, so you've got your mental, your physical health, but you've also got your internal spiritual health as well. So that sense of regulation. So I'm not aware of any studies that directly
like
compares.
which comes first.
Exactly. And certainly mental health it is important. But then if you consider how do you improve your mental health? One of the things that they recommend is by doing exercise. So you really have to push yourself to be out in nature or just have movement. So it's very interrelated and connected. So, and if you don't do exercise, then your mental health decreases. So they're very interconnected.
But this internal spiritual self, that is also, I guess, very important. That will also poke you time
Correct.
to time what to do and how to do and all these things. Yeah.
And I guess let's change the words from spirituality to that self-mastery. So
Yeah.
going back to that self-empowerment, which gives us that motivation, that drive, that sense of purpose, that knowing that, okay, I need to do this for my well-being.
Okay, nice. Now I have some questions which are very mundane questions. Okay. We kind of ask each other or in a social setting or whatever, but I'm asking you, though it is mundane, but from your science or academic background, how you see it or what is your answer to it. Okay, so the first is, which diet should I follow?
So
Like
there's-
vegetarian,
yeah.
vegan, protein, plant-based.
Yes. So, yeah, there's many different studies that look at different diets on health. And again, when we do science research, it's about what data is available. And most of the studies, they look at Western diet and Mediterranean diets. Most of the studies are done on that. So I wouldn't be recommending any particular diet. Just going back, it's a high quality diet. So going back to minimizing the amount of processed foods. So trying to have natural foods.
And one thing is, I don't get time for exercise, or I don't get time for meditation, maybe,
Yeah.
because the life is too much rush and all these things. How you tackle that, or what is your research says?
So I think with anything, it's how you decide to invest your time. And what I was saying before, everything is incidental. You don't need to set aside 1 hour. So you can just make it into a habit. So if you can just do 15 minutes of walking at lunchtime, then you start enjoying it and you'll start doing more and more. Even with meditation, start with 10 minutes a day. If you don't like it, try something else. Try a different form of meditation. Try a different form of exercise. So that time aspect, there's always time. It's what you decide to put your time into.
Okay. And another question around it is, I try to quit smoking and drinking. Okay, I used to smoke. I stopped. Okay, but drinking, yes, I drink here and there, not every day or, so it's the same thing you say. One thing I noticed, because of so many distraction in our life these days, we are very much preoccupied with something. Not necessarily we are doing one thing at a time. Maybe we have to be multitasking in various fronts, I agree. But because of this continuous happening, we are preoccupied with what we are not engagingly doing. Or lack of focus, you can say that way.
But can we just go back to the drinking and smoking part?
Yep.
Because when people talk about lifestyle medicine and you look at these organizations around the world doing research on lifestyle medicine, one of the pillars is actually avoidance of substances. And the reason I don't use that pillar is because it's an addictive behavior, and I like to be trying to empower people and not shame them or make them feel guilty about something that they can't achieve.
Right.
So, but in reality, we should be avoiding drinking and smoking. But to answer your question, it is very hard to give these things up. But if it is, there is nothing good about smoking, but I would say don't beat yourself up if you can't give up. Just keep trying. And just like introducing Meatless Monday, just do 1 day a week of non-smoking. For some people, cold turkey might work. Other people, they may need a gradual progression. But as I said, I like to focus on the 8 positive modifications rather than something that you may feel as though you're not getting right and then you're giving up on.
From your research, tell our audience about lifestyle medicine, because you have done really strong work on that. So what's that, or how we should look at?
So lifestyle medicine is really about changing your lifestyle. So we were talking about the 8 pillars, and it's a very emerging research space. So there's very few data available. So we work with the data that we have, and most of that data is based on exercise and diet. And that's why it's now slowly emerging with all these other aspects, with sleep and social connections. Social prescribing is a very popular term these days that's being used by clinicians, where people are prescribed to go and join a community group to help with their mental health. So all this is emerging research, and so it's basically just going back into our grandparents' eras, basically reconnecting with community and ourselves. It's really important for prevention as well as management. So you might not see immediate differences. So you might think, I'm doing all these, but you're actually mitigating your risk of many other chronic illnesses. So there's a lot of studies that have shown that inflammation, stress, that leads to cancer, that leads to heart disease, that leads to diet is related to diabetes. So all of these things we actually know. So why do we continue to have processed foods and not do much exercise? That's just become a part of our daily routine. We're living in sedentary jobs, occupations, and so we're losing those basic lifestyle habits that we used to have even in younger days, because we're always wanting to rush, we're always wanting to do things, so we're not spending the time to exercise or meet with friends. And I think that really has changed also after COVID, where we're more and more becoming becoming withdrawn and being in ourselves, and that's also leading to a lot of loneliness. And you might have heard a lot of studies on loneliness is happening at the moment, and that's a huge issue as we're aging, the population is aging. So how do we combat that? Is lifestyle medicine, through altruism, having a sense of purpose, through social connection, feeling positive about ourselves. So different people will require different things, and my research shows that you can't just do one of those things. So if you suddenly become a vegan, you're not going to reduce your risk of disease. You will, but you really need to incorporate as many of those 8 pillars as you can to have the optimal results to reduce your risk of chronic illnesses.
For elderly people, because of their loneliness, it's actually pushing them towards more disabled state mentally.
Positive social connection. So I was talking about social prescribing.
To push themselves as well?
Well, yes, because a lot of people don't like connecting with people.
True.
And there's social anxiety in some people. So I think it goes back again to that combination effect. What works for one person
Right.
doesn't necessarily work for another. So a person who doesn't necessarily like social connections or being a part of big community social events, for them what might be good is volunteering, or to look into spirituality, or do some creative arts. There's art therapy, there's music therapy. So all of these things can uplift our mental well-being. So you really just like when you're doing exercise throughout our lives. When we're younger, we're a lot more fitter, so we might be running and doing HIIT training and things like that. As we get older and our bodies change, we might move into swimming and more gentler forms of exercise. So just like that, even diet. So there's no one diet or one exercise that fits everyone. The bottom line is you have to be more attuned and aware of your body and what your body needs.
Okay. So on that, we should wrap up here. Thank you. Thank you, Nupurdi, for your time.
Thank
we will
you.
have more conversation on your research, what you are doing now in later stage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.